A question I get asked a lot is how do I make sense of user activated licensing per user versus tenant level activation of licensing? It can be so confusing to understand. Are you covered correctly? Are you not? Are you in breach? Are you going to be audited? Will you be in trouble? In this video, I'm going to look into this and see if we can make sense of it together. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe if you enjoy the content, which is coming up. A good starting point for understanding this is the Microsoft 365 guidance for security and compliance, as this is where most of, if not nearly all of, the tenant level activation principles come into play. So this is a really great article, but it can be confusing to understand still because it's quite a lengthy document and it takes a while to go through, and having been through it, sometimes you're still left scratching your head and wondering, do I really understand this? It starts going through beginning with Entra ID governance. It describes what Entra ID governance is, it sets the scene for each service, and then it tells you which licenses provide the rights for a user to benefit from the service. In this case, the Microsoft Entra ID governance capabilities are currently available in Microsoft Entra ID Governance and Microsoft Entra ID Governance Step Up for Entra ID P2. These two products provide the rights for as many users as there are purchased seats to have the identity governance capabilities. Very important part to remember. Entra ID governance requires that the tenant also has an active subscription to Entra ID P1, formerly Azure AD P1, or Entra ID P2, formerly known as Azure AD P2, or a subscription that includes Entra ID P1 or P2. Wow, this is getting confusing. You can see how people get very, very flummoxed by this. So that all being said, how is the service actually provisioned and deployed? This is where it can get quite shades of grey, blurred lines. Entra ID governance features are enabled at the tenant level, but implemented per user. So what does this actually mean? What it means is that the services, the features are enabled for all in the tenant. Everyone can use them, can benefit from them, but you are going to be in breach of licensing conditions if you do not have an appropriate per user license for that feature. So how can the service be applied only to users in the tenant who are licensed for the service? Admins should ensure that they have enough seats of Entra ID governance for all employees in scope or benefiting from Entra ID governance features, including access packages, access reviews, lifecycle workflows, privileged ID management, etc., etc. So that's just one, and I'm confused already. And I sort of understand this. I understand this probably as well as many as anyone can, barring licensed specialists that I work with. And I think even they get flummoxed by this at times because it's really quite difficult to get into the weeds of. Some aspects of this particular issue are easier to understand, a little easier to understand than others. I'm going to take the example of Defender for Endpoint, P1 versus P2. It's very, very clear what's included in each of these. There's more in P2 than there is in P1. As you can imagine, you're getting some additional features. And when you go into the tenant and look at each user per user and look at what they are assigned in terms of these licenses and then go into the specifics of the license, you can see what they're going to get with it. And I think that's quite easy to follow and to understand. Other cases, not so straightforward. For example, here I'm in the admin center. I'm in my user object, licenses and apps, and you can see the licenses I've got here. If I filter by Microsoft 365 E5 developer, I can see everything that I am entitled to here for this particular license, but it doesn't specifically tell me in this selection if I am eligible for e-discovery premium in Microsoft Purview, for example. At least not that I can see. I mean, we do have Purview discovery there, but I'm not even entirely sure what that relates to. I can only select or deselect that. So it may be that that relates to e-discovery in some way, shape, or form. But the point I'm getting at, I've been asked the question many, many times as relates to e-discovery premium. Who needs to be licensed for e-discovery premium? Who needs that Entra P2 license or that E5 license to make sure they are legally licensed for e-discovery premium cases? Is it everyone in the organization? Is it everyone who is going to be part of a case, like custodians? Or is it just the managers and e-discovery administrators who are conducting those cases and running those collections? I've had differing responses. So, what I thought I would do here is let's try and make some sense of this together by using good old Copilot to answer some of this confusion, if it can. I've got the document open. I've got my Copilot sidebar opened here, quite easily activated on or off by the Copilot button in my Edge browser. So let's pop in some search criteria here, some prompts. What can we do? Can you summarize all the Microsoft, helps if you can spell, security, compliance, and identity features that are affected by tenant-level activation. Let's see what Copilot says. Sure, here are some Microsoft security, compliance, and identity features that are affected by tenant-level activation. Entra ID governance, Entra ID protection, Defender for Office 365, Office 365 Cloud App Security, multi-tenant organization capabilities. What does that mean? These tenant-level services are activated in part or in full. Is there a specific feature you would like more details on? Well, that's disappointing because I know there are more that apply than just this. And I wonder if that's because there are links within this document to Purview, and it doesn't actually, within this document, talk about Purview features itself. In that case, let me ask Copilot, if you are using e-discovery premium, do you need an E5 license for just the e-discovery admins, or do custodians need an E5 license too? Let's ask the question. I'm wondering if it can answer that in the context of being in this document only. Will it? Okay. For eDiscovery Premium, custodians do need an E5 license or the appropriate add-on. eDiscovery admins, managers, and other legal personnel who manage and review case data do not need an E5 license. We could go and look at this particular website. Assign eDiscovery permissions in the compliance portal. To analyze a user's data using eDiscovery Premium, the user that is the custodian of the data, must be assigned an Office 365 E5 or a Microsoft 365 E5 license. Alternatively, users with an Office 365 E1 or an Office 365 or Microsoft 365 E3 license can be assigned a Microsoft 365 E5 compliance or eDiscovery and audit add-on license. Administrators, compliance officers, or legal personnel who are assigned to cases as members and use eDiscovery Premium to collect, view, and analyze data don't need an E5 license. So that's a very, very interesting situation as far as eDiscovery goes, because you never know who you're going to have to target for eDiscovery Premium cases. It could be very, very random who needs to be a custodian in a particular case. So you're going to have in that situation a pool of E5 licenses available to assign to them and then take it away from them. That is just really messy. So you can see how the confusion comes about. So on that basis, Copilot is potentially a really good friend here. So there you have it. Let me know what your thoughts are on tenant-wide licensing activation versus per user, and any confusion that you've had with it, any times that you fell foul of it. My key takeaway on that is keep that particular document bookmarked and look for, certainly don't drain the whole thing because it's a heck of a document and it links off to other pages for Purview content, as we saw. Get what you need from it, find on the page what you're looking for, use Copilot in Bing to ask additional questions to clarify. Just employ that belt and braces methodology to it would be my recommendation. So interesting indeed. One that will no doubt run and run, with Microsoft products frequently being released, updated, changed, renewed, renamed, and life is never dull in the world. The wonderful world of Microsoft 365 is it, which is good because it keeps us all in jobs. Amazing. Thank you for watching the video. Give me a thumbs up if you've enjoyed it. Please remember to hit the subscribe button as well if you've not already done so. Hit the notifications bell as well. Check out the memberships as well by clicking the join button. And thank you for joining me today. You take care. Bye-bye.